Regrets buying the Toyota Tacoma SR5. Well, good evening everybody, and welcome back to RobMotive. So I've had a lot of questions on the channel. Do you regret buying the Toyota Tacoma SR5? Do you regret trading off the gorgeous Voodoo Blue Unicorn manual transmission that you had before? Now, that was a TRD off-road. It was a manual transmission, had all kinds of stuff on it. I had upgraded it pretty heavily, had a leather interior, had the 360-degree camera, all kinds of stuff. So the question begs, after I've had the SR5 for a while, do I regret trading off the higher trim level, more expensive Voodoo Blue TRD off-road? Now, the short answer is no, I don't. And there are several reasons why. You know, the biggest mistake, and I've mentioned this before, that I did was ever buying a TRD trim level anyway. For what I do, it makes a heck of a lot more sense to buy something more basic and then mod it the way that I wanted, because that's what I do. It's what I do for a living. I mod my trucks, I make videos, I'm a YouTuber. So why I ever did that, I think I kind of got caught up in the allure of the TRD version. You know, for some reason I thought I had to have all this stuff, including four-wheel drive, that I don't need. Now, I mentioned four-wheel drive because, of course, I get a lot of flack about that. Oh, you might as well have bought a Prius. You bought a two-wheel drive. Well, I don't live in an area where I need a four-wheel drive. There's no off-roading opportunities here. We don't get bad weather. We don't get snow and ice and all that junk. It does rain occasionally, once in a while. And when it does rain here, I mean, it pours. But I've never really found four-wheel drive to be that much different in the rain for me. And honestly, I've never even thought, when I've had four-wheel drives, and I still do have one, I mean, the Jeep is four-wheel drive. I've been in some pretty heavy rain with it, and never once did it cross my mind to throw it into four-wheel drive. It's just not necessary. So anyway, yeah, I should have always bought the lower trim level, and maybe this was even too high. Maybe I should have just bought an SR. I don't know. But the SR5 seemed like the perfect trim level for me, and indeed, I do believe that it still is. Now, why is this? Well, you know, I had the TRD off-road, and while I love the truck, I just didn't need all that extra stuff. Matter of fact, some of the things were kind of detrimental to me, like the leather seating. You know, I made a couple videos about, and this is all on me, stupid mistake I had made, and that was climbing in and out of it with a screwed up little rivet on the back of my shorts. I had kind of scratched up the leather a little bit, even peeled a tiny little spot off. How disheartening is that? You've got these gorgeous leather seats, and they are, but now you've, I won't say ruined them, but for me ruined them, because now they're damaged by some stupid mistake that I made. So they definitely weren't something that I wanted. They were hot. I mean, down here where I live, it gets hot. The sun is hot. Typically it's sunny all the time. So crawling in and out of that truck after leaving it parked outside was unpleasant. Because of course, it's so hot, I'm wearing shorts all the time, except for today. It is winter. It's supposed to be a high of like 69 today, something like that. That's cold to me. But anyway, in the summer when it's 105 degrees, humidity's so thick you can just hold out an empty cup and it'll fill up with water, you don't need black leather seats. I much prefer the cloth. Plus, I've decided to leave the steps off of this truck. I have lifted the front end just a little bit, so it did come up a little bit. It's not hugely higher. A little bit of lift, about ½ an inch. That's right, ½ an inch from the tires, I know. And then about an inch or so in the front. So about 1.5 inches or so, something like that higher. So when I get in and out of the truck, I do tend to slide across those cloth seats. But that's okay, they'll take it. I've never had a cloth seat wear out from getting in and out of a truck. Never had any damage, unlike that leather. Now, what about the manual transmission? I love manual transmissions to begin with, so let me preface this by saying that. But the manual transmission in my 2020 TRD off-road was just, it was clunky. It was too clunky. Didn't have to be that way, and I think that's because nobody's buying them anymore. Not a lot of people anyway. So Toyota's not putting any R&D into them, right? They're basically the same that they were 10 years ago, and it felt like it. The shifting was still fun. Again, I like to drive a manual, but I like them to be a little bit smoother, you know? Didn't really like the way the gears were set up either. You know, with that reverse up and to the left, always thought like felt like I was in first gear. A couple of times at a stoplight, when I was trying to go into first gear, I actually did go into reverse. That's a little disheartening when you give it a little gas because the light turns green and you start to go backwards. Not to mention pretty scary for the person behind you, right? So I didn't really dig that. The suspension, this is my fault. I had changed the suspension. I went with a 3.2 lift. Actually ended up with being about 3.5-2. And it was rough. Probably a lot of that had to do with the tires on it too, but I think it was a combination of both. I had replaced the coils, they were stiffer, so it took bumps really, really hard. I didn't really dig that. I do like a nice, smooth, softer kind of ride I've found, and I have that in this truck. Although I did raise the front, Bilstein shocks set on a medium setting, but you don't even know there's a lift on it. It feels that good. Should have probably done that with the off-road, but you know, this is a learning process, I find. Every time you do something, you kind of figure out what you do and don't like, and not something unless you want to spend a ton of extra money that you can just whip off and throw something else on, right? So anyway, this truck for me, I gotta say, it is my favorite Tacoma that I have ever owned. And I've owned 6 or 7 of them. This one is the best. I always look forward to driving it. It is fun to drive. It is an automatic. I do miss the manual occasionally, but I say I really do prefer having an automatic in this truck because the automatic paired with the sprint booster gets rid of the lag, it gets up and goes. And by the way, if you have a manual transmission Tacoma, the sprint booster is a no-brainer. I mean, that just wakes the truck up so much that it makes the manual transmission a heck of a lot more fun to drive. I highly recommend it. Anyway, I'm very happy with this truck. I don't have any regrets buying the Toyota Tacoma SR5. I think if you're a modder and you're looking to do stuff to your truck, that's the trim level that you probably ought to get. I wouldn't spend the extra money on an off-road or higher trim level version and then start ripping stuff off and throwing it away. That's just wasted money. Anyway, leave a comment, let me know, particularly if you have the SR5. Are you happy with it? Or do you think maybe you should have bought the TRD Off-Road, TRD Sport, Limited, Pro, one of the higher trim levels? I'd be curious to know. Also, real quick, I do have 2 additional channels, RobMotive FST, all about my 2021 Toyota Tundra, and RobMotive JT, all about my 2020 Jeep Gladiator. Check them out, and if you're interested, why not subscribe? Don't forget to click that notification bell so that you don't miss out on any upcoming videos. And do me a favor, smash that subscribe button on the way out. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there.